YouTube has it hanging. I have not made a video in way too long. I have been super busy with life. As a lot of you may know, life is crazy. So I have been filming weddings, photographing weddings. I've also been doing a lot of real estate photography. That's been my main source of business. And because of that, I've had no time to really make any of these videos. But I do plan on changing that, and I wanted to bring it back with this video here. What I'm going to be doing today is showing what light pollution does to photos when you're trying to capture stars. That's why I'm in a parking lot right now. I'm actually in one of the brightest parking lots in Brownwood called Commerce Square. So what we're going to do is we are going to start here, and we're going to slowly get further and further outside of town, and then we're going to see what differences there are in the photos. It's going to be very apparent differences. So what I have here is my Canon 6D. I have a 20mm f1.4 lens. This is the Sigma Art lens. It's an amazing lens. It's my new favorite astrophotography lens. I got it about 8 months ago, and I have not even done any videos about it. So this will be the first one that kind of highlights how strong it is and how well it picks up light. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you a shot with settings that I would have if I was out in the middle of nowhere where it's pitch black. So right now I have it at 20 seconds. Actually, what I'm going to do is I'm going to up that to 25 seconds because this is a 20mm lens. So if you do the 500 rule, 500 divided by 20 is 25. So that means that before I see streaks in the sky or in the stars, I can have a 25-second exposure. That's the maximum amount of time. So 25 seconds, f1.4, and an ISO of 1600. So that's where we're going to start in this bright parking lot. The reason why I'm doing this video is because a lot of people have commented on certain astrophotography videos that I've done saying, hey, whenever I follow your steps and I use these settings, I end up with a blown out white photo. So what I can tell you is that location is probably an issue for you. You can't just step out in your backyard and take a photo. Of course, you know, you live out in the middle of nowhere. So this is what it looks like in the city whenever you take a photo of the stars with those settings. So as you can see, it looks like I took a picture of a white piece of paper. Now this was taken in RAW, so if you drop the exposure, I'm sure you can see a couple of things, but everything's going to look a little odd and distorted. So there's absolutely no way to ever use this photo. So I know that some of you who have commented are experiencing that. So what we would do if we wanted to try to get any stars in this city or in this bright parking lot is we would want to mess with our settings. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a 6-second photo, and I'm going to turn my aperture up to 3.2 or 3.5, sorry. And we're gonna see what that looks like. The picture is definitely gonna be darker. You're gonna see a lot more detail in certain things. So as you can see, still really bright. There are a couple of stars, so let's go ahead and drop this ISO. We're gonna drop the ISO down to 400 and see what that looks like. So still really bright. We're gonna go ahead and take a 2.5-second photo, ISO 250 and aperture 3.5. So now, because of how bright this parking lot is, if we're trying to expose for that, which we have with those settings, I see in my camera 1 star. That's all I can see. So in town, if you expose for the brightness of being in the city, which I had to take a 2.5-second photo at aperture 3.5 and ISO of 250, that revealed 1 star. So what we're gonna do now is we're going to move further away from these lights. I'm gonna go to a residential area, and I'm gonna take a picture there where it's a little bit darker, but there's still light out. So Brownwood is a city of 20,000 people or so around there. So if you're in a town of about that, then seeing this residential photo should give you a good idea of what it would look like if you went out in your backyard and tried to capture some stars. So let's go ahead and head that way. Okay, so I'm now in a residential park. As you can see, it is a little bit darker. We still have some brighter lights to light up the park. They're orange, so they're not these bright white lights. But what we're gonna do is we are going to, I knew that was gonna happen. So I'm gonna go ahead and take a picture at 25 seconds, ISO of 1600, and an aperture of 1.4. So this is what these are the settings that I would use if I was out in the middle of nowhere. So we'll go ahead and start and see what that looks like. So with those same settings, look how much more we can actually see. Still super blown out and gross, but look at that. You can actually see part of the Milky Way. That is amazing. I didn't actually expect to see that. I've never taken a picture with these settings in town. So now let's go ahead and take a picture with the settings set for the foreground. So back there we had to do a 2.5 second, y'all remember the settings there. So here in a little bit darker area, I'm actually going to have a 5-second exposure with an ISO of 250 and an aperture of f1.4. We're gonna go ahead and take a look and see what that looks like. So we can see our nasty bright orange foreground, and look how many more stars we can see. Over there we can only see one. Here we can see, goodness, 50 or so. So it's looking a little bit better. We're starting to see a little bit more stars, but still not those big bright Milky Way shots that we want to capture. So let's go a little bit further out. What we're gonna do now is we're gonna go right on the edge of town, and we're gonna see how many stars we see there. I think this is where we're gonna start seeing a dramatic increase in the amount of stars that we can actually capture. So let's head that way. Okay, so now I am right on the Brownwood city limits. Obviously, as you can see, I'm just pulled over right on the side of the road. I have my camera pointed right at the Milky Way, which I can actually see. So I'm right on the edge of town, and I can see the Milky Way with my eye, which means I know that my camera can see it, especially with those settings that we use. So let's go ahead and put this at 25 seconds, ISO of 1600, and aperture 1.4. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna set this on a 10-second timer, and I'm gonna run and go turn my headlights off as to not disrupt the picture. So let's go ahead and start. Okay, so I knew that this was going to be the most dramatic change that we've had because we're finally not directly under bright lights. Now, I will show you what taking photos, where's the light pollution in this photo? Because obviously there is a ton of detail. Look at the Milky Way. There is so much detail, and that is great. But do you notice how the sky kind of looks hazy, foggy, cloudy? That is where we are seeing the light pollution from town. So what we'd have to do to fix this picture is we'd have to take it to Lightroom. We'd have to use that dehaze tool. There's nothing wrong with using the dehaze tool. You can actually get some pretty good looking photos. But if you want clear Milky Way shots, we need to go that direction. There is not a town that direction for 50 miles, which means that we can drive 15 to 20 miles that way right there, away from Brownwood, which is this way, and we're going to end up getting some really crazy clear and bright Milky Way shots, and that's what we're looking for. So let's go ahead and pack up and drive a few miles. All right. Okay, one thing that I thought about while I was driving out here, I am very fortunate that I live in a town in a location of Texas where I can drive 15 to 20 miles outside of town, and I can get some really good Milky Way shots. A lot of people who are probably watching this video aren't as fortunate and live in a bigger city, Dallas, Austin, LA maybe. So if that is the case, then the best way for you to get really bright Milky Way shots would be to schedule a trip somewhere really dark. So if you're in Texas, maybe think about going to Big Bend. There's also other state parks. If you're up in the Panhandle, so you live in Lubbock or something, Caprock Canyon, I've done a video on that. Super awesome for night photography. There's also Colorado Bend State Park, which is closer to like Austin area. So there are certain areas in Texas where you can go plan a little weekend trip, go take some astrophotography shots. I've taken some really awesome night sky astrophotography pictures at, I think it's called Barefoot Camp and RV Park. Me and my wife went, and I captured this awesome time lapse here, which I'm super proud of. But then I also captured just some other astrophotography shots. So don't be discouraged if you live in a big city. The thing is about a big city is that you have to go, like if you're in Austin or Dallas, you're gonna have to drive for 30 to 40 miles in order to get out of that light pollution, because there's so much of it. But you can still, as you saw, my photo, I had quite a lot of detail, and there was still quite a lot of light pollution in the way. So don't forget about that dehaze tool. That'll definitely really help. All right, let's keep on driving. Okay, so we are 15 miles south of Brownwood. The thing is, it's so humid actually outside that I'm still seeing quite a bit of light pollution back in that direction. Milky Way's over here. It is definitely more clear over here because it is further away from town. So there is still a little bit of haze in the photo. I went ahead and took a photo just because I needed to turn the headlights off. But as you can see, there is a ton of detail in that Milky Way. It is absolutely gorgeous. So as you can see, there's a huge difference from our first photo that we took in the Brownwood city limits, in the middle of the retail center of Brownwood, all the way to 15 miles south of Brownwood. That's the difference. So if you are one of those people that have commented on my videos saying, my photos are super blown out whenever I use those settings, well, the reason why is because you are probably taking those photos while you're in town. So a good way to fix that, obviously, try to go somewhere dark. So we're gonna go ahead and take these back to Brownwood, and we're gonna see what we can make out of them from editing. So let's go do that. All right, so here we are in the office that you guys haven't even seen. This is like, we've been at this house for a year. I just really dropped the ball making videos, but I'm sorry. Okay, so let's get into these photos. So I'm going to show you the raw photos, which you've already seen, but then I'm going to show you the best way that I can edit it. So starting off, we have this white square, and what's funny is if I zoom here, look at that. Ooh, stars. But you would never try to sell this photo or post it to Instagram. The only thing I can do is drop the exposure. That's the only thing I can do. Look at this. It's just completely disgusting looking. You got a white mound of nothing. So the next photo, mess with the settings a little bit to try to darken it. You can see more detail in the sky, but it's still hideous. Even darker. Look how bright that is. But we're seeing detail here. And even darker. Now we have a proper exposure for the foreground, but because we had to do that, look at how much detail or not detail, but just there's nothing to show in the sky because we are exposed for this bright foreground. But out of the 4 photos, definitely this is the best looking one. Who wants to look at that, So this is what that's actually unedited. This is edited here. So that's pretty much all we could do with pictures from the middle of town. That's it. So next up, we had the park, Coggin Park. Now these are with those settings that I would use out in the middle of nowhere, that 25-second exposure. This is what it looked like. Remember, we saw those really nasty bright orange lights, so that's why we had. So with editing, this is as good as I can make it look. Right there. It still looks absolutely disgusting, still super bright, not much better than Commerce Square, but look at that. You can actually tell where the Milky Way is. Bam, bam. So whenever we exposed for the foreground, this was the raw file that you guys already saw. This is edited. So again, Milky Way is right there. Looks a little bit better. And this was at f1.4, which is pretty impressive that I could still have an aperture that open and still see this much detail and stuff. So that's pretty cool. Next up, right on the side of the highway, we're looking a little orange. We're tilting a little to the right because I didn't really steady my camera too well. But this is the raw. Of course, obviously, like I said, dramatic change. Bam, right there. Look at that Milky Way. You can't miss it. It's the big rip in the sky is what it looks like. Edited, even better. You see so much more. But as I was saying, you got this the haziness in the sky. So if I mess with the dehaze tool, look at how, that's how hazy it was because of the light pollution. Now you can see the Milky Way, but it looks like there's just this white film right over the sky. So of course that dehaze tool takes that haziness out, but you see how it compromises the appeal of the foreground, if that makes any sense. It doesn't look that great, the foreground doesn't, and it starts looking real weird. Like this looks more normal. I don't know, that foreground looks gross either way, but this is about as good as we can make the sky look right here. And this is right on the edge of town, so if you know, don't have much time to go super far away, and you can get to an area just right outside of town where you can see the Milky Way, then, you know, you can get these shots. Next up, we are now 15 miles outside of town. So this is the big money shot. This is the exposure that we're looking for. This is raw, and already this looks almost just as good as this to me. I mean, it looks so good. The colors are a little bit different. So if we come in and, well, I'm not gonna mess with anything. I'm gonna show you what I edited first. Check this out. Here we go. Boom. That looks really good to me. People edit their Milky Way photos different, but I love lots of contrast. You can see all the clouds from the Milky Way. It looks so good. And then how bright the center is right there. I mean, it's just incredible. I absolutely love seeing the Milky Way like that. And I did go ahead and use dehaze tool on this one as well, because like I said, it was so humid, I was still seeing haziness in the sky. So you don't have to go that harsh. That's a little ridiculous. I mean, really, right there looks good to me. That's about where I like it. So here's a couple more shots that I got while I was out there. I put the camera dead center of the road. Look how cool that looks, right? I mean, I just drove out to the middle of a highway, and it looks so good. And this, I actually had the ISO turned up to 3200 instead of 1600. And if you can tell, see how you can't see much pinkish red? Well, with this ISO 3200, I was actually able to pick up more colors. So if you notice up here, you can see all these purples and these pinks, and that's not chromatic aberration. That is, oh, well, it didn't load. There we go. That's not chromatic aberration. That's actually the colors in the Milky Way. There's nebulas all over the place, and they give this reddish glow, and they're all throughout there. So it looks really cool. Here's one more that I got that just, I just wanted to show as much detail in the sky as I could. That is absolutely amazing. And most of this is thanks to this lens. This lens is amazing. I did a video already showing what you can do with a kit lens, and now I'm showing what you can do if you upgrade to a prime lens. This lens cost me $900. That's pretty pricey, but with the results that I get, absolutely worth it. It is incredible. I also have the Rokinon 14mm f2.8, which I do still use, but having a lens that goes down to an f1.4 is just, it is amazing. So if you have the money, or if you have a way to save up money for a good astrophotography lens, go for the Sigma Art f1.4 20mm lens. So that'll do it for this video. It has been, like I said, over a year. I apologize. I will be having more things coming out soon, because I do absolutely love this. If this video helped one person, it was totally worth it. If you learned anything, please leave a like. Subscribe if you haven't subscribed, and you can learn more cool things about astrophotography and photography in general. Make sure you share this video with everybody, including your grandmother. Grandmas love camera videos and photography. Anyway, I will catch you guys later. Have a good day.